Hello again, this is Dr. Jenkins. Here we are all ready for lab number 3 on the GI tract. So hopefully you've got to this in lecture by now, but even if you haven't, you will. An important part of understanding sports nutrition is understanding how the things we eat are taken into our digestive tract and what happens to them there. So this lab is all about introducing you to the GI tract. Are you ready? Even if you're not, we're gonna go. Make sure you review some of the functions of the digestive tract. I want to point out a couple things. And remember, what it is I'm reviewing is what you should be studying for our upcoming lab exam. Make sure that you know the definition of digestion. And digestion simply means to break down. So indeed, after we bring in the food, or the cheesy puffs, as Cartman says there, after we bring in the food, we've got to break it down into smaller pieces. That's just what digestion means. And we can break things down or digest them mechanically, which would be things like chewing. Or you can digest things chemically by using specific chemicals called enzymes. And we rely on both. So we break things down or digest things mechanically, like chewing, mechanical means to break things down, and we break things down using chemicals called enzymes. When you see the word absorption, that means to move broken down nutrients from the digestive tract into the bloodstream. That's the important part there. Into the bloodstream. All right? Because it's the bloodstream that's going to be able to transport our nutrients to our muscles, right? So we ingest food, we digest it, break it down, and then once food has been broken down to its smallest possible pieces, then we absorb those nutrients, which means we move those nutrients into the bloodstream. And it is the bloodstream that is able to transport the nutrients to our muscles. And then, of course, we got to poop out what's undigested. Okay, good. Just going to wipe the screen here, keep it clean. I wasn't sure if it was going to. There we go. Now, the majority of this lab is based on the basic anatomy. All right, so here we see a picture of a human digestive tract. And I want to point out two big things here. We will refer to the digestive tract, and that is the path that food takes. So what I'm drawing here is the path that food takes, and then we poop out what's undigestible. But that's what the GI tract means. It's what food passes through. And it goes in order: mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, whatever's left to be pooped out, rectum, and anus. But you see, we also have what are considered to be accessory organs. Accessory organs sit outside the digestive tract. And what that means is it means that food does not directly pass through it. And our digestive organs would be the liver, which is right here, the gallbladder right underneath it, and then the pancreas, which is behind the stomach. So these play a role in digestion. It's just that they're considered to be accessory organs because food does not directly pass through them. All right, good. You with me? Excellent. I'm going to let you do most of the reviewing for the anatomy. These are supposed to be arrows, but something funky happened with the formatting. This is the GI tract. Okay, so let's start with the GI tract. I will do a little bit of review of anatomy. And this is in order. So we bring in food through our oral cavity, which is basically our mouth, right? Oral cavity is the mouth. And then it travels to a region known as the pharynx. Some people will call this the throat, but we're not going to say throat because this is a science class. We use the real words, pharynx. The pharynx is going to lead into the esophagus, which is the muscular tube, carries food down to the stomach. Here's the stomach. Now let me ask you a question. Usually this is a fun question to ask in person. Not as much fun when we're not in person, but how long do you think it takes food to get from your mouth to the stomach? How long does it take for food to get from your mouth to the stomach? Dramatic pause. Guess what? Only about 5 seconds. After we swallow, it's a quick trip down to the stomach. That won't be on any lab tests, just FYI. I do want to point out that it's important to note what sides of the body these organs are on. And what I want to point out here is we're going to call this the left side and this the right side. Because when we talk about the right and left sides of the abdomen, it is what it would be on that person. So this is this man's right side, even though when we look at it, it's our left. And then this would be his left side. Imagine we drew an imaginary line right down the center of the body. We're going to place these organs on the appropriate side. Now the esophagus kind of runs right down the middle, but look at the stomach. We just labeled the stomach. The stomach is considered to be in the upper left part of the abdomen, right? Upper left, that person's left. Now, when the food leaves the stomach, it's going to then travel into the small intestine. All of this in here is the small intestine. It's called the small intestine because it is small in diameter. Then that food is going to go into the large intestine. It is the large intestine because it's wider in diameter. And the large intestine goes up and around and then back down, which leads us to the rectum, which is the holding tank for the poop. And then the anus is just the opening for when we poop things out. Now, let's talk about the accessory organs. So we talked about the GI tract. The accessory organs would be the liver. And remember, food does not directly pass through the accessory organs, but they still play a role. Let me clean this up a little bit so we can see the accessory organs. All right, let's start with the liver. The liver is on the upper right abdominal quadrant. So remember, the stomach was on the upper left side, but the liver is on the upper right side. And then the gallbladder is a little green doohickey right underneath the liver. So it's shown right there. Now the pancreas is a little bit tricky because it is behind the stomach. We can see a little yellow tip. So the pancreas is behind the stomach. Most of it is on the upper left part, but a little teeny bit will also go to the upper right. So I put the pancreas in orange there. It's behind the stomach, mostly on the upper left side, but it does a little bit, in most people, come over to the upper right. There you go. Now, we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't talk about the functions. So we're going to fill in these with some basic functions, and I would like you to know these. All right, the oral cavity does mechanical digestion. We know that because when we bring in food into our mouth, we chew it, and chewing is another form of mechanical digestion. The pharynx and esophagus, they are both simply passageways for food, which is to say, after we've mechanically digested food in the mouth, it quickly just passes through the pharynx, passes through the esophagus. There's no additional digestion happening there. It's just a passageway. When we get to the stomach, we're going to do mechanical digestion because the stomach churns. It churns almost like a washing machine. And the stomach can do chemical digestion of protein. Okay, so the stomach will do mechanical digestion of all nutrients, but the stomach can also begin to chemically digest protein. I'm going to change colors for the small intestine just to make it easier to read. The small intestine will do chemical digestion of all nutrients. And then, after the small intestine has finished chemically digesting all nutrients, this is where absorption happens. And remember, absorption means the movement of these broken down nutrients into the bloodstream, because it is the bloodstream that's going to transport these nutrients out to the muscles. The large intestine will do absorption of water. So our body likes to recycle water. So you will absorb quite a bit of water through the large intestine. And of course, the large intestine also forms the poop or fecal matter. Now, what about the pancreas, liver, and gallbladder? So the pancreas secretes digestive enzymes. So remember, in order for us to do chemical digestion, we need to have enzymes, because enzymes are the chemical that help us to chemically digest. So a lot of these enzymes that we need for digestion come from the pancreas. The liver produces a substance called bile, and bile is needed to break down fat. So in addition to needing an enzyme in order to chemically break down fat, we also need bile. It's another chemical, and bile helps us to chemically break down fat. And what does the gallbladder do? It stores bile. So we like to have a little storage tank right underneath the liver. Okay, I went through those kind of quickly, but this is a basic introduction to the function. Make sure that you could give these functions for each of the organs. Okay, this information is extra. It will not be on the lab quiz, but I put it on here because people just like to ask me this, so it's fun to talk about. I already mentioned how long it takes for food to get from the mouth down to the stomach. Not very long, right? But of course, later down the GI tract, food will spend much longer. Just FYI here, will not be on a test. Now, there's two last structures to talk about. Now, one part of your lab assignment this week is going to be to draw, yes, I said it, draw a GI tract. Usually we do it with clay in the lab, but we're not in the lab, so you're going to draw it. And in addition to the organs that I already talked about, I want you to draw a sphincter, and I'm going to ask you to draw some ducts, which is our next. These are the last two topics. So let's talk about a sphincter. What is a sphincter? A sphincter is an area of enlarged muscle. At least that's the easiest way I can describe it. And I have a picture of the stomach here up close. If you look at the stomach, there's actually muscle in all of the stomach wall, right? There has to be muscle because, as we talked about, one of the things the stomach does is it does mechanical digestion, so it churns. So one thing that we need muscles in the wall. But a sphincter is where an area of muscle is thicker or enlarged. And you can see a labeling here of the pyloric sphincter. It just means that instead of the muscle only being thin, in that area, the muscle is thicker. Right? So look, right there. That area of muscle is thicker. And what it does is when that muscle contracts, the ends of the sphincter come together. And I want to be able to show this to you. Let me go back. And I'll erase it all so you can see it better, right? So you can see where in that sphincter the muscle is thicker. And when it's contracted, these ends of the muscle actually meet. And it blocks this off. So when those sphincters are contracted, food cannot leave the stomach. And we have to have it because we need food to stay in the stomach for a certain amount of time. But just as we contracted the sphincters, we can relax them. And when sphincters are relaxed, things can move through. So it's just one way that we can regulate the movement of food through the digestive tract. You don't need to know the specific sphincters. But I'd like you to know what a sphincter is, and in your drawing, I want you to draw one somewhere. I mean, you might as well just draw the pyloric sphincter, which is where it's a sphincter between the stomach and the small intestine. Excellent. And we have sphincters elsewhere. This is just one example. Okay. Last thing I want you to include in your drawing is a duct. Actually, several ducts. You're going to have 3 ducts. And let's look at this picture. Let's get our bearings. So if we were going to draw this out, get that out of the way. If we were going to draw this out, we would have the stomach would be here. I'm going to draw a really bad stomach. It's a terrible stomach. I can't draw. This would be the stomach. Remember the pancreas, which is yellow here. The pancreas is behind the stomach. And the liver would be up here. Okay? So we're seeing the liver up here, the stomach right here. The gallbladder is that green thing underneath the liver. And what we're seeing here is the beginning of the small intestine. So this is important because we know, remember we have the accessory organs? And what we mean when we say accessory organs is that the accessory organs sit outside of the digestive tract. Food does not directly pass through. So I am going to draw the liver again. So let's say this is the liver. We have the liver and we have the pancreas. These organs sit outside the digestive tract. Yet, what did I say the function of these organs was? Well, the pancreas secretes enzymes. The liver produces and secretes bile. And we need the digestive enzymes and we need bile in order to chemically break down nutrients inside the digestive tract. So we have to have a way to get the enzymes from the pancreas, to get the bile from the liver into the digestive tract. And we do that, ladies and gentlemen, through ducts. Let's look at the pancreatic duct. Let's see, what color? Maybe I'll use red. So running right down the center of the pancreas is the pancreatic duct. So if the pancreas, because it does, the pancreas produces enzymes, produces enzymes, produces enzymes. How are we going to get those enzymes into the digestive tract? Bingo, through a duct. So these enzymes make their way to the duct, and then all the enzymes travel down the pancreatic duct, and they empty into the beginning of the small intestine. Now, we also need a duct coming from the liver and gallbladder. So we're going to have one duct coming from the liver. It's actually two, but you can just draw one. The liver's so big it needs two ducts, but let's just do one. So we have one duct coming from the liver, and then we have yet another duct coming from the gallbladder. And the liver and gallbladder ducts combine together, and they form a duct that also empties into the beginning of the small intestine. So on your drawing, I want you to draw 3 ducts. One duct from the liver, another duct from the gallbladder, and another duct from the pancreas. And it's important that we know about these ducts, because what they do is this is how our enzymes get from the accessory organs into the digestive tract. And you're going to make sure that all 3 of these ducts that you draw go into the beginning of the small intestine. Okay, I look forward to your drawings. I'm here if you have questions.